and welcome to this Permalife video. Today I want to talk about the ATP cycle, which is also known as the Krebs cycle, in relation to ME, chronic fatigue, and also long COVID. Now, the reason I want to do this is because if you go to the doctors and say, look doc, I'm really struggling with energy, I can't do half the stuff I used to, and I'm really struggling, and I think it might be ME, chronic fatigue or whatever, or long COVID, they'll often push you down the road of antidepressants and say, look, take these tablets, and that can help a lot of time if you need them, but it doesn't really get to the heart of the issue, and it's almost like they're just sort of sticking a plaster on it and not really getting into the depth of it. Also, what I'm about to show you is there's nothing new about this. It's well written about. It's been known about for a long time, but the doctors they're not very forthcoming with it. They don't tell you that this even exists. Also, this relates to nutrition. Now, when I eventually got a referral to the chronic fatigue service in Bristol, they didn't even mention any of this stuff. It took me my own research and investigation to find out about this. When I asked about is nutrition an important thing, they just sort of poo-pooed it and said, no, not really, and it's not really to do with that. When I pushed it again, they're like, no, just stop talking about that. It's nothing to do with that. So. But this is really, really essential understanding for anybody who's really struggling with energy, ME, and chronic fatigue, and long COVID. So I really want to make a video about it. Also, when I was in the early stages of recovery, I was getting heart scans, I was getting ultrasounds done, I was getting all these tests to try and find out what was going on, and got pushed down all these sort of wrong alleys. And spent a lot of time and effort and energy going down them. And if I'd known this stuff at the start, it would have been great. I did come across this sort of stuff, but one of the hardest things is that there's so much information about ME, chronic fatigue, and so many so much advice in general about what to do. It's really hard to know which one's right. I might look at this thing, but I also looked at 10 other things and thought, well, I don't know which one to look at. Whereas this one is one of the most important. I'll say that it's not the only thing that is really important in ME, chronic fatigue, because the ME, chronic fatigue is a multi-system sort of failure, if you like. But this is one of the most important parts. So, right, let's get into it. We'll start here. You've got adenosine triphosphate, which is this molecule which is made up of 3 parts: adenine, ribose, and the phosphate group, of which there is 3 of. So you've got ATP, right? Now you burn that and you get this big energy output, and it goes to ADP. Now what then happens is, through this process here, which I'll explain in a bit, you pick up another phosphate molecule and it goes back to ATP. So it goes adenosine diphosphate, and it goes back to adenosine triphosphate. Now, if all's working well, that should just loop around and you're happy and you're making energy and you're burning it and then rebuilding it and burning it and so on and so forth, and that's all good. You get this big energy from that. If this isn't working properly, now it can be working not at all, but it can be sort of functioning at 50%. Then so if it's at 50% and you've got this energy demand, your body says, right, I want to help you out, I want to meet this energy demand. So it says, right, okay, I can recycle half of the ADP, but the other half, if it's working at 50%, you're like, shit, I need to do something. So it starts to burn ADP, and it can do that. It goes to adenosine diphosphate to adenosine monophosphate. So that's when you've got 2 of these phosphate, and then you burn off and you've got 1 of them left. Now you get a small amount of energy from that and you can carry on for a little bit, but then you can't recycle AMP back to ADP, and so once it's burned, it's gone, and then you have to lose that through excretion. Now this explains why there's a delayed fatigue response. So if you have a big energy demand put on you and you meet that demand and you go ATP to ADP, right? And then the energy demand passes and you carry on for the next few days and you're like, okay, I'm kind of all right, maybe I feel a bit tired or whatever, but I'm mostly fine. And then like 2, 3, 4 days later, you have this huge crash when you're like, you have muscle weakness, you'll be on the floor, you have muscle pain, maybe headaches, like all over, just body hurting, and you're like, what happened? You know, I was fine. I went for that run or did that big energy thing on Monday, and now come Thursday, you know, I've had a few gentle days and I have this crash. What's happened is that you've, on your big energy demand, you've burnt your ATP, and then it's gone to ADP, and then the next few days you've been sort of getting by just burning off ADP to AMP, and that's giving you this sort of small energy you can output. But then once that's all gone, you're completely crashed, and your body just basically shuts down, and it's got to then build ATP, which is this quite a complicated molecule over here, from scratch. Now, if you think about it, building this from scratch, you've got to eat food, it's got to go through your gut, it's got to go through your delivery system and your circulation, into the cells and then into the mitochondria. Now, to do that, that takes quite a lot of energy, but bearing in mind you don't have any energy, you burnt it all. So it can be quite a hard thing to do. And also, you've got mitochondria, which are these cells, which are like they're almost like a cell inside your cell, and you've got like trillions of them, and they're all over your body. They're in every single cell. If you're trying to rebuild that through this process, but you don't have any energy to do it, then you're going to end up with gut problems, or you're going to end up like with your delivery system is going to be all out of balance, and the way you're circulating your nutrients, your cells are going to be it's going to be harder for them to absorb what they need to absorb, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so there's kind of like one problem creates these other problems. So then what I'd say is if you take supplements and you can have a really good diet and be trying to support this system here, but if you're not absorbing any of the supplements or the really good diet you've got, it's basically you're just flushing quite good quality food down the toilet, because you're not absorbing it. So then that also kind of impacts this process as well. So I'd like to give you some sort of solution to this. The main one is use meditation and EFT, or emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping, which is a process in which you tap on certain pressure points. Meditation and that to get yourself into this really deep, settled, healing state, because once you're there, your body can start to relax. Now, there's research being shown that there's a thing called cell danger mode, and that's when if you're under threat, your cells stop doing any maintenance work, stop doing any repair work, and just basically all go into survival mode. It's very similar to what happened in the national scale of lockdown. Everything just sort of locks down, and they don't do any sort of extra stuff. They just like go into really sort of protection mode. And when you have this crash, your cells go, shit, I'm going to go into like protection mode, and so no real healing can happen. And also you're probably panicking because of what's going on as well. I know that I spent a lot of time panicking and just freaking out because I didn't have any energy and life was coming at me. So but if you can get into this like really deep meditative like healing state, then your cells can will start to do the repair work, and it's the like real healing. You're basically sending your body a message that you can go into sort of healing mode. So that would be the first thing I'd say, like use techniques to get into a really sort of settled healing state. And then start to investigate if you have accumulated any problems with this, because it's very likely that if you have had such a challenge like chronic fatigue, your gut is going to be having some problems. It's such a big shock that your whole system takes it. And each one of these, you might need to do investigation into each one of these. It would be great if we could go straight to this stuff and say, right, I just need to find the right supplements and foods to get this thing working again. but it's not as straightforward as that. You might need to go through each one of these and say, right, I need to get the gut sorted first, and then say, okay, right, how's my body delivering the nutrients across my body? Okay, how are my cells absorbing it? And then, okay, is there any sort of detoxing or things that are getting in the way of my mitochondria working properly? And then you can start to look at this stuff a bit more and give yourself the right nutrients. So in my case, that's what I've had to do. I've had to start right back here and then work my way through it. In terms of this molecule here, I'm on a thing called D-ribose, which is basically this guy here, and it's basically one of the building blocks of adenosine triphosphate, and it helps me create ATP from scratch. It hasn't necessarily helped with the recycling of it, but the idea has been that if I can build ATP from scratch, it means that if I crash, which is when you're down here, then the crash doesn't last as long, and it's not severe, and I can come back to energy a bit quicker. But also, if that's happening, then your body is spending less time in crash mode, and then you're healing quicker, and it's easier to get into a healing state. So then your body can start to do its own work at repairing the mitochondria and repairing this process itself. So there's that. There are things you can do and are supplements you can take to encourage this process to work more effectively. I don't want to go too much into that right now, but there's the real if you've had lots of like toxic stress or like toxins in your lifestyle, like through chemicals or through living in a polluted area and stuff like that, then you might have lots of stuff that's inhibiting this process, and it's about working with the body to try and detoxify the body, and that should help this cycle to go a bit better. So there's stuff like that you can do as well. So yeah, I hope that's made some sense to people, and basically I would say that first do meditation and the tapping, the EFT, and then start to look at each process along this way to see if there's anything that is stopping this process working, and then investigate which supplements might be right for you in terms of making this thing work. I hope that helps somebody, and if you have any questions, let me know, and I can try and answer them. All right, thanks for watching.